Hello, I'm Haslinda, Amin of Bloomberg Television. The pandemic has hit global investment flows. FDI slumped more than 40% in 2020, and such a low level has not been seen since the 1990s. Despite optimism about a global economic recovery, FDI flows may still be in question with the uncertainty of how COVID-19 will play out. Let's get insights, perspectives from our speakers. His Excellency Sheikh Ali bin Alwaleed Al Thani, CEO Invest Qatar, Lord Gerry Grimstone, Minister for Investment, Department for International Trade and the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, the United Kingdom. Your Excellency, let's start with you. We know that Qatar is looking to transform and diversify its economy. What are the key investment areas as you look to the future? Because we know that your recent MOUs with Russian entities, for example, the sectors include the likes of agri-tech, cybersecurity, education, IT. Are these your priority areas?
Thank you very much. And at the outset, I'd like to thank Bloomberg for hosting me. And as you mentioned, the pandemic represents a challenge globally. The UNCTAD expected a 40% decrease in global FDI inflows. In Qatar, we very much beat that benchmark. I think in the last quarter of 2020, we had a positive inflow of around 500 million US dollars. In terms of, and as you mentioned, the reform agenda of Qatar, economic diversification is at the center of that. We very much look at areas to diversify away our economy from the hydrocarbon, while also building up adjacent industries. Food security is very much important. Resiliency is the overall theme of the Qatar economy, its ability to withstand external shocks, and building up resiliency in terms of food security, on logistics, in diversifying our supply chain, and also in terms of water security. There's many adjacent opportunities to these sectors, and we prioritize them. Now, additionally, we very much look at the emerging trends in terms of digitally dominant experiences in healthcare. And especially in the field of telehealth, there's many emerging startups, and a lot of companies look to Qatar to scale up and to expand in the region in this particular sector. In cybersecurity as well, we have the World Cup upcoming, and a lot of opportunities around cyber emerged. We also look towards sports and sport tech and media as well. So that, in a nutshell, is very much our priority sectors. And also we're very much agnostic in terms of how we welcome investors and which sectors are open to them. Qatar is very much a liberal economy. So we very much prioritize our sectors based on overall emerging trends and themes. And here's where we see the opportunity.
Lord Grimstone, the UK has seen a drop in investment from countries like Japan, for instance, is now having to fight it out with Germany, with France for that investment flow. Has the appeal of the UK as an export base been impacted by Brexit? What are your numbers telling you?
I was very pleased. Well, thank you for the question. I'm very pleased to be here today. I was very pleased to see last week that the EY survey, having surveyed a lot of investors, did find out that the UK is the most attractive investment destination in Europe. Of course, in the run-up to the end of last year, there was a lot of uncertainties in the UK. People didn't know how Brexit would turn out. But I think that uncertainty having been removed is making us a very attractive investment destination, which is good. But of course, the position that we're all in, and this goes for my great friends in Qatar as well, attracting investment has become a globally competitive sport. And to attract investment, you have to be match fit, you have to understand what the investors want, and you have to coincide that with national objectives. So I'm very positive about going forward, but of course we are dealing with a completely different world post-pandemic than the one we had grown up with as recently as a couple of years ago.
Quantify that optimism for us, Lord Grimstone. What kind of numbers are you anticipating for 2021?
I don't want to give a forecast because sometimes investments come through quickly, some they don't. Our pipeline has never been more active than it is now. It's very interesting what investors are looking for. I think the move towards net zero. We've got the United Kingdom in pole position on that. We've got COP26 later this year. We will be net zero by 2050. That's throwing up enormous investment possibilities. I would say life sciences. I think people have seen what's happened in life sciences since the pandemic started, what's happened on vaccines, a lot of interest in investing in life sciences. The tech sectors, as always, right, very attractive to investment. And then, of course, infrastructure. This country needs more infrastructure. Very, very grateful to our friends in Qatar, who have invested in that. Very happy for their investments in property, which they've made. So it's an interesting time. And whenever you get change in the world, as great as we've seen in the last 2 years, the pandemic, net zero, that throws up enormous opportunities for those who are willing to take them.
Your Excellency, talk to us about Qatar's new PPP plan or PPP law. How does it boost the country's value proposition to investors?
Very much we believe that private-public partnership is essential, especially in an economy like Qatar. When we look at investors and what they look for, we come down to three main kind of factors. One is sound economic situation. The second is fiscal and monetary predictability. And the third is effective and efficient government. Now, given Qatar's small size and agility, we believe that creating partnerships, especially between the private and public sector, is essential to investor success. In the PPP program, and that is mainly structured around infrastructure projects like public schools, water sewage treatment, very much, we find this as a lucrative opportunity to anchor foreign investment in Qatar. We are now looking to expand this program across different sectors. And very much, we believe this is a lucrative opportunity and also an anchor for investors to base out and to then expand their operations in Qatar and to scale up and expand in the region as well.
Along Grimstone, we know that China is increasingly an important source of investment for Britain, but China investment in the country at a 10-year low, a drop of almost 80%, partly because of the pandemic, partly because of political tensions over issues like Xinjiang. How are you looking to attract Chinese capital to Britain?
We have a very clear view of China. Of course, we very much welcome, trade and investment with China. But again, it's appropriate sometimes to express our views on some of the things that are going on, which we don't think are right. But we absolutely, welcome Chinese investment when it's in our mutual interest. The Chinese are sophisticated investors. I think they understand that, and we're getting, good trade flows, good investment flows still from there.
It is a balancing act sometimes, Lord Grimstone. There is uncertainty, for instance, about the proposed nuclear power station in the UK, which involves China's CGN, which has been blacklisted by the US. Has a decision been made on that?
We very much welcome the investment they're doing alongside EDF in our nuclear power stations. We've introduced last year a new national security and investment bill, which will come into effect later this year. I should stress that this bill is completely what we call actor agnostic, not aimed at any one country. But obviously it's right that if you're attracting investment, and it's a real priority of ours now to attract investment, you have to make sure that that investment is safe for your country. Makes good sense to do that.
Your Excellency, Qatar has seen rapid expansion, a Gulf metropolis, a transit hub, infrastructure spending in the lead up to the Soccer World Cup next year is estimated to be about $300 billion. What does it all mean for GDP growth this year, next year? Can it exceed the World Bank estimates of 3% growth this year, 4.1 in 2022?
Well, we aim to beat that. And, especially in the heart of our diversification efforts, foreign direct investment plays a large part. Qatar, very recently adjusted its legislation, opened up completely all sectors for foreign direct investment, and developed even new platforms to service and to register and license investors, such as the Qatar Free Zones Authority, which is a logistics hub very much tied to large infrastructure investments, such as the largest deep water port in the region, and also Hamad International Airport, which hosts the largest air cargo fleet in the region. So very much, there's opportunities that we look to expand upon around all the infrastructure investment that Qatar has undertaken. We very much look to build for the future, but now, as the construction and distribution sector recede in the coming, as the projects are finishing up and the World Cup is, gearing up to completion, we look very much to expand upon all the infrastructure investments that we've made and to develop adjacent opportunities around these assets.
Alwaleed Grimstone, we know that you've been busy trying to forge trade deals. What's the outlook for FTAs to be signed over the next 6 to 12 months? We know that you suggested that perhaps that FTA with India is closer now than before.
Well, our strategy is to put the United Kingdom at the centre of a global network of FTAs, to make the UK a very attractive place to put a manufacturing centre in and to export from the UK. You've mentioned India. We're very enthusiastic about the prospects of a free trade agreement with the Gulf, both with the Gulf Cooperation Council and working with the individual countries in the Gulf. We see that as a great way of expanding trade and investment. We have applied for entry to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, that very important free trade agreement with 11 countries. Negotiations are starting on that. We have ongoing negotiations with New Zealand. A deal with Australia was agreed in principle just last week. And I think altogether now that we have agreed trade deals with 67 countries. So it's been a really important piece of work with us. But if through trade deals we can increase trade and investment flows between ourselves and Qatar, I very much admire Qatar. I think the work that Qatar is doing on attracting investment is absolutely first rate. And if our free trade agreement will increase the flow of investment between our two countries and the trade between our two countries, there'd be nobody happier than myself.
Your Excellency, Minister Grimstone, just another question for both of you before we go, with a minute to go here. I want to touch on cryptocurrencies, which is front and center. We know that Qatar has said no to cryptocurrencies. I'm just wondering what your opinion is, how cryptocurrencies can come into the mainstream. Would it take coordinated regulation across borders for it to be an accepted investment? Your Excellency, your thoughts on that?
So, as you mentioned, we very much look towards the underlying technology that underpins cryptocurrency. So in terms of blockchain and fintech, Qatar has done a lot. We see the QFC adopt a series of regulations that helped grow fintech in Qatar. So we very much look, toward developing opportunities around that. Now, in terms of cryptocurrency, we see a globally emerging trend. Qatar has yet to take part in that, but that is very much on the radar.
Your thoughts, Lord Grimstone?
Very briefly, I don't play roulette and I don't invest in cryptocurrencies.
But what do you make of talk of greater regulation? Would that make cryptocurrencies more acceptable as an investment?
Well, look, seriously, obviously it's important that they are regulated. They have a place to play. But I think people, rightly, particularly people who don't really understand what it is they're buying into, it must be right to say to those people to be cautious.
Well, Grimstone, Your Excellency, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure having this conversation.